where Blake Lively's lawyers deny that they actually subpoenaed Megyn Kelly.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Blossom Talk. I'm Sashti Flo, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. Today is usually my podcast day, so I'm going to make this into a podcast, although I'm going to talk about all the things that you hear me talk about most days, really every day. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's legal feud, because there's so much to talk about, and I wanted to focus on that. And yesterday was a little stressful because I had to bring Oscar to his dental cleaning and they pulled 2 teeth out of his mouth and he's feeling a little bit like low energy today and he's a little bit traumatized still, so I had to take extra good care of him. Anyways, there's so many updates here. First of all, Perez Hilton was in court yesterday and it looked like it was going to be a terrible loss. But then it was an amazing win, so I'm talking about that. And also Megyn Kelly was dragged into this. We didn't know that she was subpoenaed, and she is blasting Blake Lively. You won't believe the things that she said about her. And also she showed my clip on her show and explained why she decided to really dislike Blake Lively on her own. I also have a greeting from someone that was in the courtroom that was following Perez Hilton's day when he was facing Blake Lively's 3 lawyers. So stay tuned for that. First, I wanted to make something clear that I spoke about yesterday, because I did say that Blake Lively lied in her deposition. And some people said, no, she wasn't really lying. This could be like, bending the truth kind of thing. So basically what I showed yesterday was a little snippet from Blake Lively's deposition that Jed Wallace used against her, where his lawyer asked her if she was familiar with the book It Ends With Us prior to accepting the role. And she said yes. And then I showed a video from Vogue where she said she'd never heard about the book and she must be living under a rock.
I actually didn't know the book, which I feel like I live under a rock for not knowing that.
I find these two statements to be very contradicting, but some people are saying that her lawyers could argue that she hadn't heard of it when the project was first brought to her, but then she had heard about it by the time she formally agreed to take on the role. I do see this point, and I do know how lawyers loves to twist things around. But the point here is that Justin Baldoni's attorneys can argue that there are inconsistencies here, no matter what she says. Because the way they're going to put it is that she said under oath that she heard about the book. But then she said in an interview that they can show that I've never heard about it. Must have been living under a rock. So they could argue that she's saying one thing to the audience in interviews and one thing under oath in court. Even if the lawyers try to spin the timeline here, it makes it look messy and she would have to explain this. And juries don't really like messy explanations. That in itself damages her credibility. And Justin Baldoni's team can argue that she's not trustworthy and that she's trying to bend the truth. They can use this, and that's the reason why they put it in there, because they could pick this up later and say, hey, if she's willing to twist things around like she's doing in this tiny little segment here, can you imagine how she can twist the truth in her lawsuits? She's willing to bend the truth for the smaller things. What is she willing to do with the bigger things? So even though some people were pointing this out, which I'm really grateful for, because I think we need to argue both sides here, I do think that this was a huge slip up and is going to be used against her. Otherwise, they would have never put it in there, and otherwise the judge would never have allowed them to unseal that part of her deposition. All right, so let's talk about Perez Hilton, who was in court yesterday in Nevada, in Las Vegas, for a hearing.
It's the big day. I just showed up at the federal courthouse in my florals, surprised to see
People.
He was really nervous. He was being very honest and very vulnerable about this position that he was put in by Blake Lively, because he was representing himself, which makes it obviously a lot more challenging when she's sending 3 attorneys to convince the judge in Nevada that he should actually send this case to the judge in New York, Judge Lyman, who we know Perez Hilton is not a fan of. So Perez was super nervous. He attended wearing a floral jacket, and some people were outside waiting for him. One of them was Courtney Pruce, who sent me this beautiful photo from outside of the courtroom. She later went inside the courtroom and she has a little report for us. She said she was sitting on Perez's side in first row, and she said that his side was packed with people. A lot of law students were there. And she said the judge was very charismatic. But did he rule in Perez's favor?
Hey, Shirsty. My name is Courtney. I was there outside holding signs and in the courtroom today. And just wanted to say that Perez did a wonderful job. You know, a lot of people were asking him how he was feeling. And he would say, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic. The judge had swagger. He was a very charismatic man. But then, you know, he did say that he was going to have Lyman rule on the jurisdictional issue, which was pretty upsetting. So I honestly thought Perez lost it. I didn't think Lyman would do the right thing, but Lyman did. So overall, Perez did a great job. Blake's side seemed a little flustered because of the pressure that the judge was putting on her counsel to prove why the jurisdictional rules, the shield law doesn't apply and why it should be transferred. And they tried to cite California law. They tried to cite that Perez had a California address, so Nevada law didn't apply, which Perez is a resident of Nevada, so.
Thank you, Courtney, for sending me this video. It was 2 a.m. in Las Vegas when I messaged with her and asked her if she could send me a video. So I really appreciate that you did that in the middle of the night, basically. And I think it means so much to Perez that you actually did that and you were there to support him. So if you follow this case closely, you know that Perez is trying to fight Blake Lively in his own home state because the rules to protect journalists are much stricter in Nevada than they are in New York. And Blake Lively's team have been arguing that he's not a real journalist. And they were trying to argue this yesterday, but then the judge said, you know, this is not what we're here for today. The only reason they were there were to decide if the judge should give the judge in New York Perez Hilton's case. He decided to do that. And Perez was devastated. He was like, I lost this. There's no way anything's going to come from this now. It's up to Judge Lyman. He doesn't like me. But then, guess what happened? Judge Lyman did the most unexpected thing. I think no one was expecting this. He wrote a 7-page letter to support Perez Hilton and say that he does not have jurisdiction over him. And Perez is representing himself, so he's going to give him also the benefit of the doubts. So he's sending the case back to Nevada, which is a huge win for Perez. So congratulations to Perez for doing this on his own. It's not over yet, obviously. He has to come back on Tuesday and actually fight the subpoena in itself. But now, with the rules in Nevada, hopefully it will be settled right there and then. And Blake Lively will not have access to any sources or anything that has to do with Perez Hilton that she cannot access from the other people she subpoenaed. Like Perez was saying yesterday, you know, she already could get this information if she thinks there's any value in it from the people she's subpoenaing on Justin Baldoni's side. If they had any communication with him, they should leave that over. They're part of the lawsuit. He's not.
Oh my God. Judge Lyman just ruled and he proved me wrong.
Also, I received so many emails from people yesterday that Megyn Kelly has been subpoenaed as well. I had no idea about it, and Megyn Kelly is furious. She's not being shy about how she really feels about Blake Lively. But before I get more into that, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, OneSkin. If you're like me, you're careful about what you put on your skin. And that's why I always do my research before I start a new regimen. I look at reviews online, and then I'm very lucky because I have a friend who's a biochemist. So I always ask him, what are really in these products and do they actually work? I've been using this now for about 6 months, and I have to agree with the 6,300 5-star reviews that they got online. They have a full line of face, body, sun, and travel-sized products. I love that I could start seeing results really quickly. I started having a little peeling on my chin, and I was like, this is working. I feel like my skin looks healthier, firmer, and more hydrated. OneSkin are multi-purpose products, so you don't need a complicated routine to achieve healthier looking skin, and it's free of harmful chemicals. Very important. The products are backed by extensive lab and clinical data to validate their efficiency and safety on all skin types. OneSkin makes skincare simple. Just cleanse, pat dry, and apply twice daily. That's it. It easily fits into my routine without adding any extra steps. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspect of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using my code FLAW, my last name, FLAA, at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code FLAW. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support my channel by telling them that I sent you. All right, let's go back to Megyn Kelly's subpoena and all her adjectives that she used to describe Blake Lively. Here we go.
I am a member of the press. You are a sad, pathetic, untalented, narcissistic bully. Blake Lively acts like an unlikable bully brat who cannot believe any of that negative press could possibly be genuine. She's a liar. Blake Lively is a narcissistic, liar, bully brat.
Also, Megyn Kelly used my interview to explain why she started disliking Blake Lively. I know Perez Hilton also did that.
Clips like this one, where she bullied a reporter with no power after the journalist had the nerve to compliment Blake's very obviously pregnant state.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
So absurd. So that the reporter wasn't pregnant. She was belittled and she did feel insulted and she spoke out about it after the fact. But Blake Lively couldn't be asked about the very obvious baby bump. It's called being a reporter.
She also interviewed some lawyers about this. And one of them was talking about how he thinks that Blake Lively's lawyers are the one just dragging this out now because they know that they can make so much money on this case. And I think he's right on the dollar with that.
This entire litigation train is probably being driven almost exclusively by the attorneys who have a financial interest in the longevity and complexity of this litigation. It's almost like a class action case where the only people that benefit are the lawyers.
But at the same time, Blake Lively is not asking them to stop because she still thinks that it's impossible to dislike her without getting paid to do so. The media was picking this up everywhere, and New York Post did a story on it where Blake Lively's lawyers deny that they actually subpoenaed Megyn Kelly. This is the kind of thing that they keep doing. The headline here, by the way, says Megyn Kelly rips narcissistic bully Blake Lively for subpoenaing her in Justin Baldoni lawsuits. Gave her absolutely nothing. Yeah, to make sure that everyone understands that Megyn Kelly, they quashed her subpoena and she gave them absolutely nothing. A spokesperson for Lively told the New York Post that at no point in this litigation has Ms. Lively served a subpoena on Megyn Kelly. Ms. Lively is continuing to pursue discovery in order to prove her case that Justin Baldoni, Jed Wallace, Melissa Nathan, and the Wayfair parties retaliated against her for speaking up against the harassment she and others experienced on the set, as alleged in her complaint. And then they continue, seeking evidence through discovery is a normal part of the litigation process, and it is in addition to overwhelming amount of evidence already compiled in the form of Melissa Nathan's own text messages. The recently exposed Katie K's email describing Jed Wallace's services, as well as the invoices showing he was paid for those services, and Baldoni's own request on what he wants his team to do. These are the text messages that I showed you guys here on my channel, and these are the text messages that showed very clearly that this group of people were working to protect Justin Baldoni's reputation after Blake Lively tried to tarnish it. They were only doing things to help push the narrative that Justin Baldoni is innocent and he's a good guy. There were no text messages whatsoever, any evidence of anyone saying that they should push any negative content about Blake Lively. There's none. So basically, by denying that they subpoenaed Megyn Kelly, it doesn't mean anything, because they did subpoena her company, and they asked specifically for Megyn Kelly's conversations and communications, and even her handouts, I think documents when she invites guests on her show. They wanted to see that. They wanted to see reports from, you know, when they were talking about how her show went afterwards. I mean, it was so ridiculous. It was so overbroad. It was so insane. So I guess they could say that they didn't subpoena her directly at her home address, but they did subpoena her company and her specifically. So this is just, again, an example of how they bend the truth. Deadline did also do a story about this that really upset me, by the way. So they're saying Blake Lively insists no subpoena ever sent to Megyn Kelly in Justin Baldoni battle. Another entitled nasty Hollywood snob, ex-Fox News host declares out of it ends with a star. So they're also angling this on the fact that Blake Lively denies sending a subpoena to Megyn Kelly. And the reporter here, which is a man, which I'm going to make a point about, says the ongoing she said, he said. It's not he said, she said, he said. It's she said, he brought all the receipts. Okay? It's more like she lied, he told the truth. And that's why we believe him, because we have all the evidence that says that Blake Lively is not telling the truth. So the reporter here says that, however, with what certainly seems like some very distinct blonde hair splitting, Lively sides insist Kelly protest too much. At no point in the litigation has Ms. Lively served a subpoena on Megyn Kelly. So to describe this feud between the two of them, he uses the word distinct blonde hair splitting, playing on the word hair splitting, but pointing out that these two women are blonde. I actually find that pretty sexist. It plays on that old, dumb, blonde stereotype that traditionally in history has been used to belittle women. He's reducing women to their looks, to their hair color. Would he ever say brown hair splitting or bold hair splitting? Would he ever use this about any men? I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, because what he's doing here is saying that, you know, making kind of a joke about this, which is, it's not a joke to be subpoenaed. I've been subpoenaed. It's really awful. And I don't think it's something that you should make jokes about. Being a reporter himself, he should know better. Yeah, I don't like the way he's undermining the seriousness of the situation for the people who were dragged into this being innocent, being non-parties. Anyways, that's it from you guys on a Friday. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I promise you more amazing interviews are to come on my podcast on Fridays. So please stay tuned. Oscar is sending his love to everyone, right, Oscar? But he wants to remind everyone to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And then he wants to wish everyone a happy weekend. Right, Oscar?
Yeah, we Flawsome Talk.